There was once a knight in shining armour, handsome, noble and strong. He dedicated himself to God and love. George and the lady, go! Wherever he went, he brought justice and mercy. Many a time he rescued a damsel in distress and jousted to win his lady's favour. Were there really knights like this in the Middle Ages? Our story of the knight begins in 1066, when William the Bastard conquered England. The Anglo-Saxons called his followers knights, which became knights. William, who now understandably changed his name to William the Conqueror, rewarded his knights with land and property. But they didn't pay rent. Instead, they had to provide military service for the king. The whole system was designed as a war machine, and the sort of knight who did well in it was not the quiet, retiring type.
The ability to beat another man to a bloody pulp or cut him to pieces was not merely a requirement of knighthood, it was one of its ideals. The idea society came up with was to try and invent a code of behaviour by which the knightly class must learn to govern themselves. Well, it certainly seemed like a good idea. What made the Norman knights different was the fact they fought on horseback. And since the French for horse was cheval, a mounted warrior was known as a chevalier. And so the code of conduct for knights, indeed their whole culture, became known as chivalry.
But what exactly was chivalry? Well, it depended who you were. The knights themselves had no doubt what chivalry meant to them. It meant learning how to kill people, making money, and getting famous. And in the 12th century, the man who best embodied what the knights thought chivalry was Sir William Marshall.
William clearly knew what it was to have a caring, loving father. And just to make sure he got the point, when his father died, he didn't leave his son a penny. William was faced with two alternatives: join the church or become a knight.
So William went to Normandy, where his cousin ran a sort of military academy. Exactly what William might have learned there was demonstrated to me by Steve Mallet, a specialist in medieval horsemanship, and historian Tobias Capwell.
God, this looks frightening.
I think that's the idea.
But he trained them to realise that.
Absolutely, yes. There's manuscript evidence that actually shows horses being trained to kick, to strike out at a shield that's held by an attendant.
So the horse is a weapon?
The horse is the most powerful weapon that a knight has.
And what's the most crucial part of that training to the horse?
Well, a horse is a flight animal, and its natural reaction, which is perfectly sensible, is there is a threat, so you run away. But what Steve's doing here is teaching a horse to override its natural instinct. The training should bring the horse to a point where it's really an extension of the rider, that the horse's legs are moving as if they are the rider's own legs, and that when the rider asks for something, it happens instantly.
I bet there were times when William felt he wasn't getting anywhere. I mean, he was still broke, but at least he was learning to join the ruling class.
Right now, he's working to move the horse sideways. The ability to subtly change your line against an opponent is extremely important. You know, this is really about power steering.
It just stops just like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Power brakes as well. Very important.
At the end of it all, William was dubbed a knight by the Earl of Tankerville. Now, at last, he was equipped to earn a bit of ready cash. And he didn't even need to go to war. There was plenty to be made on the tournament circuit.
In the early days, a tournament was a miniature war played for sport. The tournament field stretched over miles and could include villages and towns. It was a bit like the Isle of Man Grand Prix, only with knights chasing each other on horseback and hacking at everyone with swords. It was terribly popular.
The money-making came when you captured another knight and held him for ransom.
William hit the jackpot with his first tournament. His biographer tells us only that morning the Marshal had been a poor man as regards possessions and horses, but now he had 4.5 fine mounts. I'm not quite sure what he did with the half a horse. Maybe he ate it.
Sir William didn't just get rich, he achieved that other aim of chivalry, fame. While he was still in training, he caught the eye of Queen Eleanor of Aquitaine. Well, a lot of young knights did. But then he served her husband Henry II with great success.
In return for his loyal service, Henry rewarded William with the hand of the most eligible heiress on the market. She came complete with oodles of land and her own castle.
And this is it, Chepstow.
Well, the landless William had finally become a man of property. It was every knight's dream come true. He was famous as a warrior and one of the richest men in England.
When he was buried at Temple Church in London in 1219, the Archbishop of Canterbury called William Marshal the best knight in the world.
Fame, wealth, and God's approval. It's what chivalry was all about, if you were. Violence was intrinsic to the cult of chivalry. Even